As we unearth and discover more and more about Johnson Controls' earliest years, truly, it was an international firm very early in its history. My name is Ken Worth. I'm the Associate Director of Records and Archives at Johnson Controls. The Archives is a little branch that is related to the historical records of Johnson Controls. We really did a lot of things globally that only the Archives has documented. When you page through the contract book, one of our earliest contract books for New York, as I did many years ago, I was pleased to come across what I would call almost something that was unbelievable to find. And that was an installation in Tokyo, Japan, for the Palace of the Crown Prince, who would later become the Emperor of Japan. And what was interesting to me was that Johnson Controls was in Tokyo, Japan, in this very important building so early on. This was 1901, and what's important to note about that particular edifice is that it's still being used by the government of Japan. It's called the Akasaka Guest House. It's Japan's guest house for heads of state who come and visit. So it's a very important building to this day, and Johnson Controls was there way back in 1901, putting in the installations there. Similarly, a few years later, in Madrid, Spain, Alfonso XIII was building a new palace for himself and his bride, and they had an envoy who came to the United States and visited various factories and looked at the kinds of temperature controls that were being offered through various companies and were sold on what Johnson Controls had to offer. So we see in the summer of 1906 a corps of workmen coming from our New York branch office to Madrid, Spain, to do the installation there. And I asked myself, well, what was it about, besides the Johnson system was clearly superior, what was it perhaps that led to those heads of state, those governments deciding for Johnson Controls? And I came across this 1888 report, which was compiled by the Royal Prussian Ministry of Public Works. And in it, Johnson Controls had only 3 years old at that point in time, had sent a temperature regulation system to Berlin to have it tested. And the results of the test was that the system that was set up in this house in Berlin, and Professor Rietschel, who did the testing of that Johnson system, was so delighted, enamored by our system, that he wrote back and let Johnson Controls know that. Johnson Controls subsequently would use this report in their ads, in their publications, in their catalogs, saying, hey, look, this is what the German ministry is saying about our system. And that had attached a lot of importance to folks who were looking for temperature control devices as well internationally. We see, future installations in Warsaw in Poland, Manchester, England came on very early as well. And we also see the earliest evidence that we have of an installation in China happened in 1916. I mean, we see so many different types of installations within the contract book. So many of those buildings are still around today. And it really gives you a sense of pride when you can realize that Johnson Controls has had history in those particular buildings, and we are still servicing them, many of them today.